Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Toxic Happy Hour with your hosts, Publord.hodl, Danish hodl, myself. And today we have a very special guest, John Vallis, in the house. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, John. First off, what are you drinking today?
I have a horrible answer because I'm actually in isolation right now and I'm out at the cabin and this is what I had in the fridge. So nothing exotic, but it's tasting good nonetheless.
I have a fair warning, John, because what's going to happen now, anytime you have a drink that is not fully acceptable by our very toxic chat, memes will be made. I have been the victim of such memes, and I see you might take the baton from me now. So thank you very much for that.
Bring it.
Poppy, what are you having today?
Yeah, so I stopped by the pub on the way home, but of course now Puppy's got some family time to deal with, so I'm going live out of the house. But I'm going with what's this Sierra Nevada. It's called the Torpedo IPA. So it's
nice.
it's a double IPA. Yes, I know I should be stacking sats with that, but please don't kill me.
The truth is, even though I say this was a lame answer, but I do actually prefer just like the plain lager style beers. It's fancy IPA stuff. Just this is all I need.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm with John here. I gotta say, IPA is way too hobby for me. I like a lot of beers. Guinness, poured the right way is probably my favorite. But no IPAs, but all the other good stuff. But John, thanks a lot for joining us. And so one thing, like we always have like one topic that I put in the title on YouTube, and we may or may not actually remember to discuss that because I never shared with Publord here first. That is today, whether we did have an all-time high earlier today. We've been discussing it in our Twitter chat. So what do you think? We're either near all-time high, we at all-time high. What's your take on the whole situation and just being here?
I don't care really. I was operating under the assumption that like I thought 20K somewhere there was the all-time high in 17, but I didn't check and see what the precise number was. If Twitter says if the consensus is an all-time high, then I'm happy to celebrate all-time high, and if not, I'm sure we'll be there very shortly. Nevertheless, so I'm kind of always celebrating all these highs and all the lows, and yeah, it's doesn't really make a difference to me one way or the other. What about you guys? What do you think?
So look, I started at $17,621.15, but who's counting? So for me, every crash down was a reason to celebrate. I remember when it got to 15,000, like, oh damn, okay, this is all right. I can redeem a little bit. When it got down to $10,000, that first dip, I was like, holy, okay, I can salvage some of this. I'm learning. So the more I was learning, my learning curve was going up. And so I believed in it more as the price was coming down. And at $3,400, I saw a lot of people sweating. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, give me everything you got right now. Give it all to me. So coming back up, I've had a good time going down with it, a great time going up because let's be honest, man, Bitcoiners are the best people in the world.
Well, not according to George Gammon.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, what does George Boy say?
Well, he put out a tweet today, said bullish on Bitcoin, bearish on Bitcoiners, and I took it.
He doesn't get
it, so.
He doesn't get it, man. He doesn't get it. That's a great thing. And of course, Michael Saylor is a meme unto himself. But yeah, when he comes out with that Cyber Hornet comment, he literally just nailed it right on the head. He nailed it on the head. And that's what, and we're talking about what we're toxic here about, like Andrew said, we're just talking about the scams, the bullshit. When just focus on the king, man. Just focus on Bitcoin. The rest of that stuff is just gonna do your head in at the end of the day.
Totally agree. You know, Sailor's just a meme machine, right? Like, you know, he's just, it flows naturally. It's amazing to have a character like that in the space now. But I agree. You know, there's only one thing to focus on here. And you know, I've always been an advocate of the toxicity in this thing. You know, because first of all, if you can't take a bit of, if you don't think that what lies on the other side of taking a bit of heat and trying to get past what seems on the surface to be toxicity from, you know, this group of people, if what lies beyond that, i.e. Bitcoin and what it represents, doesn't inspire you enough to push past that, then you're a fucking pussy and you're not here for the right reasons. Right? Or you don't see it. So that's one thing too. Like, I appreciate it because all it is it's a relentless dedication to the refinement of the truth as quickly as possible, right? And that's where you know, and I know there's lots of other stuff there. There's playfulness and there's dunking on people and there's, like, you know, locker room humor and all the rest of it. But that's, you know, ultimately all that's there to kind of, for everyone to throw out the ideas and for the best ones to survive and do that as quickly as possible. And if you think that's a negative attribute of this whole thing, then you're insane, you know? And if your skin is so thin that you can't take a few dunks and you can't take a few slights, and we know there's some people in the space that are like that, then also, you know, you're fucked.
If I can just jump in real quick, what was brilliant about that exchange was John Vallis just going all over Anders when he's getting ready to talk. Anders getting a little dose of his own medicine.
Notice how I haven't said anything yet.
No, but I was going to. So now you know, Anders. Let him finish. I'm not even a podcaster, but I know rule one is to let him finish. Yeah, it sounded great.
Like John was finished, and I closed my mouth as soon as I heard another sentence on the way. I just want to say that I totally agree with what John is saying here. The toxicity is it's a really it's a feature. In fact, I really embrace it as one of the best and most important things of the Bitcoin community, because we need to be toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of sound money. Scams, which is basically pretty much everything else than Bitcoin, at least, you know, amongst the ones trying to be money, like Ethereum, etc. They make unexperienced people come in, waste their money on something that is likely to go to zero, because money is a winner-takes-all game. So it's important that we, you know, throw the spotlight on these scams and remind people that the founders, you know, minted 70% of the outstanding supply for themselves and are constantly just dumping it on noobs while they're sending out press releases how great it is. Now they're going to work with banks, et cetera, et cetera. It's important that we are toxic towards scams to help people not lose their savings on making other people rich. These founders, they all sell their shitcoin for Bitcoin. They all want to collect more Bitcoin. Don't be that sucker. So we have an toxicity, and toximalism is something I embrace as a phenomenal, great, positive thing to help people.
Oh, I'm not used to having this much free time. I'm not used to having this much free time with Anders dropping. Yeah. So I'll jump in with this. You know, because I started, like I said, towards the height of 2017, had no idea what the hell I'm doing. I heard a friend of mine she's angry at her boyfriend because apparently he had friends that in probably, I think, 2012 had told him about Bitcoin, and she sort of understood and asked him to get into it. And then he said, "Oh no, that's stupid. That's stupid stuff." And when she saw that price hitting 10,000, 15,000, I mean, she was just angry. And I'd heard about before, but I just called it like I thought it was like gamer money. I thought it was like gamers that you trade this money to buy your next big sword for Dungeons and Dragons. Who knew? I didn't know anything. But it let me do a deep dive after I FOMO'd in, and Coinbase at the time only offered Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Ethereum. So I said, okay, let's do the smart thing here and diversify. So I went 25% across the board. But guess what? It was the toxic people. It was the maximalists that I started reading and listening to, that, man, I get it now. And so I converted everything over to Bitcoin, got rid of everything, and thank God I did, because everything else has just been slaughtered for the last 3 years. 70%, 80%, all of those coins.
Amen.
Yeah, so not only is the toxicity a mechanism for, the more rapid discovery of the best ideas and presumably truth at some level, but it's also a mechanism for when people get drawn into the space by whatever way they do, to accelerating their process through the misconceptions around doing anything other than getting involved in Bitcoin. Like, because you got this big vocal group of people that's basically shaming you into not doing anything other than learning about Bitcoin. And all of us are of the opinion that that's ultimately a service to them. It saves them a lot of pain in terms of the losses they may incur by doing otherwise. And so, again, it's a feature. And if your sensibilities are affected by that, that's more a reflection of you than anything else.
Absolutely. And I think another person who right now is feeling the toxicity in the space is Raoul Powell and his crypto vision, where, I mean, my opinion really is, yeah, you can say all you want that Bitcoiners or maximalists are toxic, but this thing about embracing the bigger audience so you can capitalize even more money on your platform by allowing for Ethereum, by allowing for Ripple, etc. That to me is, I mean, you are part of the problem. And I tweeted that to him when he was talking about this. Yeah, it's all good that we're talking about this. But if you help promote these scammers, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, you go, Pub.
Listen, so Raoul was interesting because, I was pretty hard on the guy for quite a bit. I put out quite a few memes. There were a few I put out there that he actually replied and laughed about, and I gave him a good time about, because look, he took a beating for that. I don't know how much of that is trolling. I don't know how much of that is shitcoinery. He's trying to make a name for himself. I don't know. Caveat emptor, buy beware when you come into the space on who you listen to, who you trust. It takes time to find, to me, it takes time to find that right mix of Bitcoiners that you're just 100%, whatever they say, is the truth. Others I put in that 50 to 75% category of, well, sometimes they're Bitcoiners, other times they're just talking shit. I don't know. For what it is, I'm one of those people, any news is good news in a way. It brings attention. It's sort of like Facebook with Libra and all that. Yeah, listen, it's going to need a lot of people to just wanting some sort of stable coin, but other people are going to figure it out, do the deep dive. And that's what your guys' job is, you're as podcasters in a way. And the other guys that are memers is, look, once we get them in here, we pull them away from that and teach them.
Yeah, I think it's conceivable that guys like Raoul are actually well-intended. Like, their incentives are such that they benefit from promoting these things and producing content around them because there's a certain degree of interest in them. So, like, recognizing that. But I think it's possible that they just think it's interesting, and that there's a probability, whatever that may be, that it has legs or it has a future, and therefore, they reason that they should investigate it a bit. And like that on the surface is not, it's not a necessarily sort of approach to take. But I love how we all get to be here, and we all get to and we all get to express what our bets are in terms of what, the content we produce and the people we engage with. And like, I just think, to me, it's almost insane that you would have this Bitcoin phenomenon and the culture and the people and the philosophies and the writing and the ideas and all the stuff that's emerging around Bitcoin, which is the thing that I really love to investigate in the people that I speak to. That you would be looking for something beyond that, because there is so much there. is so exciting. It's so compelling. There's so much intellectual energy behind it. Like, sure, add on whatever the fuck else you want to add on. That, like, it's like a restaurant, right? Like, pizza really fucking well, the best pizza in the world. Like, you're gonna just do that. Yes, maybe theoretically you add a customer by adding burgers and pasta and steaks, because hey, what if somebody comes and they don't like pizza and I want to be able to give them a burger? But like, what you end up doing is just diluting your offering down and not focusing in on the thing that's most important, the thing that's most compelling, you know. And so nothing could be more compelling right now than Bitcoin. And like, I get that you're trying to be somewhat inclusive, or you're trying to cast a broader net about this quote unquote emerging industry. But I do think it obviously speaks to the fact that you don't fully appreciate the implications of Bitcoin, because I feel like anyone who does, there's no need to like spend time investigating other things right now, because this is so juicy. There is so much here, and we are just scratching the surface of it. And you know, but to each their own. Like, we get to see like people expressing their interests and their, you know, in the free market, we get to see where their understanding lies. Like, when George gets on and says that kind of stuff about Bitcoin, it's like, okay, like now I know more about what George sees and what he does not see in this space, and that's great. And that'll help me determine how much time and attention I give him and his content and his opinions. And that's how it's supposed to work, you know?
Absolutely. I want to just interrupt with a breaking announcement. Plan Marcus found the red balloon. You can see it right there. John, I just want to let you know that it is an institution here in the Toxic Happy Hour that Plan Marcus, who, by the way, is actually a sock pocket or a cover account for Plan B when he goes incognito. He found the red balloon once again. So that's, we really appreciate that. So regarding the, you know, like letting the other things be there and embracing it. I started my Bitcoin meetup in Century City, Los Angeles, exactly the day that that the UASF, you know, was enforced. We got SegWit and Bcash split off, and very quickly, so I had to pay for those facilities. I had a great, like an actual cinema that I used, which was amazing for meetups. And very quickly, people were saying, "Hey, you know, you should. Why don't you do some meetups on ICOs? Like, more people want it. More people will pay a ticket price. More people will pay more." I could immediately see I could have made like real money on embracing ICOs, and I hadn't been in the space for a long time. But to me, it was just clear, and I believe it really is for most people. These people that embrace the other ideas. That look, and as Michael Saylor says, Bitcoin has already won. Now we're watching it really play out. And anyone who allows for these and want to capitalize on it on their platform by embracing it, they're basically, in my opinion, they're not very smart, or they're basically wanting to make money on misguiding people that haven't done all the due diligence yet in their investment decisions. At the same time, it is surprising that so many people still come in, and without doing enough research, they end up buying these, you know, altcoins, shitcoins, whatever. So yeah, Puppy.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's not much different. Well, actually, it's worse today than it was when I started. I mean, we only had 4 coins to look for on Coinbase. Let's be honest. Now, what do you have? 6,000, and you come in, and what do you want to do? I'm going to pay $19,000 for this Bitcoin. No, I'm going to try to find the next Bitcoin. They have no conception of how it works, what scarcity is, how this price is really undervalued, and yeah, there's unit bias. The unit bias is real. I don't know how we do a transition to Satoshis. You do a transition to Satoshis, people will finally get it. They would actually finally get it. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Doc?
I think this bull run, it would be great if we made sats the standard, because you're right.
Yeah.
There's an obvious unit bias, and people think a lot of people don't even know they can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, which obviously shows you how little research they've done. But it is kind of, that's a lot of people's impression, that like, oh my God, Bitcoin is 18,000, 19,000, 20,000 bucks. Like I can't afford a Bitcoin. They don't realize that it's divisible. So I think if they knew they could get 100,000 Satoshis for 20 bucks, then they'd be a lot more interested in that. But, you know, to the point about all this other noise in the space, the thing that I love about it is that it's the degree to which people engage and promote other stuff, in my opinion, reveals their degree of either the degree of their stupidity or the degree of their integrity, both of which I find value in knowing. And like, you know, one of the things that I love about the cyber hornets or the plebs or the maximalists is, again, to go back to that toxicity, if you can get past that, you know, what in my opinion is a very thin veneer, because like to me, this space is like all love. It's amazing how much, you know, love and support there is in this space, and, you know, puts a smile on my face anytime I think about it. But, you know, if the other thing that is, there's so much integrity in that, in this, you know, amongst the cyber hornets, like it's almost an attribute of being like a hardcore, you know, Bitcoiners, that like you value integrity and you do your best to maybe even increase your degree of integrity, and maybe even consider more the decisions you make to make sure they're in line with, you know, however you formulate your integrity or your ethics or your principles. And like, I think that's part of the transformation we're seeing in a lot of people as they come into the space. Like these questions are re-emerging as novel, and they're starting to refine them more. And I think that's great. But, you know, as it relates to people being involved in other things, it just seems so clear today that, like, whether it's on, you know, you see people doing stuff on Twitter or ICOs or whatever the fuck else they're doing, it's like, it's so apparent, like those two things, stupidity or integrity. And it's so easy for me to judge where people are falling on those two spectrums. And I think that's part of the reason why, you know, the cyber hornets swarm and dunk on people as they do, because it is so apparent. And when they see either abjects or a complete lack of integrity, they go for the jugular, and rightly so.
All right, but I think we kind of now touched upon these people who it capitalize on and embrace shit coins in order for them to make more money on their you know, platform, or in general. But John, what I'd love to hear is you telling us a little bit about your growing podcast. And by the way, everyone can find John's Twitter link in the show notes below on YouTube. There he has links to his podcast. But tell us more about your podcast, what you're doing there, and whatever, you know, what excites you in the Bitcoin space today.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's not much to say, really. I spark up conversations with all sorts of Bitcoiners on the shows, anywhere from, you know, anon accounts with 20 followers on Twitter to, you know, the names that we're all familiar with. And I just talk about Bitcoin, and that's why it started, because, you know, I love talking about Bitcoin, and I there was too much going on for me not to kind of open the release valve on that excitement every now and then by having those conversations. And you know, I don't have it, you know, I've never had a purpose or a direct with the show or with the conversation. What I'm finding, and people that listen to my show probably you know, have noticed this as well, is like, I just find the most compelling aspect of this story to be Bitcoiners and the culture that all of those Bitcoiners interacting and sharing their ideas and you know, learning similar things, and emerging as a result of that is incredibly fascinating to me. You know, the ways in which that interacting with Bitcoin changes people and changes their behavior and changes their outlook on the future, and you know, changes how they act and behave and how they think and their philosophies and their principles. Like, all of that is so ridiculously compelling to me that that's why when someone like Gammon says bearish on Bitcoiners, I'm like that is the stupidest. Because for me, and I always say this, but Bitcoin is just a tool, and it's a glorious, amazing once in a humanity sort of tool, but it doesn't mean anything unless it changes how we behave. That's all tool, like whether it changes what we're able to do, that's all that matters. And so ultimately the punchline, the real important thing is, well, what does it allow us to do differently? How does it allow us to interact differently? What does it allow us to become as a result of being a novel tool that we're able to use? And so to that end, what's emerging as a result of all these human beings understanding and using Bitcoin is the story to me. And so I just love talking to people about what their story through Bitcoin has been and how it's changed them and how it's changed their perspective and what their aspirations are now that Bitcoin is on the scene, and what the future looks like to them, and all of that kind of stuff. And it never gets old, so all the finance stuff and the investment case, like, I don't care if what the US dollar is going to do in a year. Like, I'm all in. So like, it doesn't really matter to me. Like when hyperinflation in the US dollar happens, like so I find it interesting. They can be, they can be somewhat interesting conversations that I have for, like on pods and stuff. But like, I get what's happening in on the macro timeline of these things playing out, but we all know where this story is likely going to end, macro, economy and finance and money and that kind of stuff. So I just like to lean into this amazing group of people that are coalescing around this thing and having a bunch of fun doing it. I mean, it's the best.
Yeah, and I mean, you're doing an excellent job, and everyone can see that on your subscribers and your viewer numbers. So it's really great to see another maximalist just have great conversations and grow in this space. So my coffee was finally ready.
Nice
That's
cup.
what I had to do. Yeah, so this is my it's my golden cup from eToro. It's
should be orange though.
It could be orange. The reason I got a gold cup is because I currently have the most
sorry about that.
copiers allocating funds to me and the most assets under management. So my strategy in eToro is basically different investors have a portfolio of different cryptocurrencies in US, and my portfolio is 100% allocated to Bitcoin. And as expected here, doing the halving bull run, it is outperforming everything else, which very easily for me puts me in the position of having the most assets under management. Right now, it's like 1,020 people in US have allocated part of their savings to me, and let me guide them through all the shitcoinery to 100% Bitcoin focused portfolio. And thanks to the halving, they get a better return with me. So
isn't it crazy how goddamn simple it's all become? Take your shit money, put it into Bitcoin, secure it, wait. And if you choose to engage in this vibrant, crazy community that's growing up alongside it, like you don't gotta know how to balance a portfolio, manage this and that, taxes, risk, everything. Just buy it, wait, and allow freedom to descend upon you.
You know what's funny? It reminds me of like our grandparents and great grandparents' way of thinking, the way that it used to be on how you dealt with money. And look, I have fun with my memes and being at the pub and on Bitcoin Twitter. I couldn't believe this past year, like all of a sudden all the DMs that you're gonna get, and I'm not even a big account. I can't imagine what you deal with. And I try to answer them all honestly. And so I write back to every, there's some that are obvious. Hey, sir, I'm out of, I have no money. Here's all my addresses. But there are other legitimate people that are just, so what is Bitcoin? What do I do? And man, you know how the truth will set you free? The truth is simple. It's honest. And I just always tell them, listen, whatever you have to invest, buy Bitcoin only, dollar cost average, and just hold it. That's it. when you can give people financial advice for a future that takes up less than half a tweet, I know you're onto something. You're onto something for me.
Right.
Totally.
I gotta say I'm bullish, John Vallis here, and I'm excited that I have two philosophical Bitcoiners today here on the Toxic
Yeah.
Happy Hour. Both of you guys, you know, taking these nice deep dives into something more profound. I find it's really great. So, John, before you're talking about you know, these macroeconomists, and it's been really interesting and something that I have absolutely loved to see this year, you know, especially since COVID and the printing of fiat currency and the fact, you know, how they're destroying the US dollars and all the other currencies even faster. So it's that has been amazing to see, and it's interesting how some of these now you can see Raoul Powell and Gammon not having that laser sharp focus like Michael Saylor, for instance. Another guy of the macroeconomist that is I'm a you know is a big idol of mine. I'm a huge fan. I just got this book from Jeff Booth, The Price of Tomorrow. Can't wait to read it.
Yep.
We have him on the Toxic Happy Hour next week. I believe it's Tuesday the 8th, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and that's going to be fantastic because not only is a macroeconomist, all of us here in the Bitcoin space know that the current monetary system is at fault, is a big problem, and all of us know sound money. But what Jeff Booth does is he explains, you know, why and how the world is going to be a better place. What's going to happen when we have sound money, and for that, I feel, you know, in contrast to some of the other macroeconomists that are all, you know, love what they come out and saying. Some Pish has, you know, solid points. Then I really like Jeff Booth adding something new to the discussion. So you were talking about, you didn't, John, and I really appreciate your focus on Bitcoin and you know, not caring too much about price. But I got to tell you, me and Publord and we got two more meme plebs in the chat. We've got Plan Marcus and Labra that are both very focused on the $100,000 because we heard that you're together with Michael Saylor coordinating that $100,000 Bitcoin party on his yacht. That's why we have our focus on that. So I want to ask you here now if we can get some 4 tickets for that. We'd be very excited.
I haven't, like, you obviously you can imagine how many people have hit me up so far, and I haven't figured out. I've still been like probing the community for the best way to go about it. So I'm not making any commitments to tickets yet, but I'll just say the chances are probably pretty good. So we'll see how long it takes for us to get there, and then what track we should take. But you know, you talk about getting DMs and stuff, and of course I get all the normal ones about like hello sir, and you know, some very nice ones about the podcast and people looking for help. But my God, after the Saylor interview, I was just for a solid couple weeks there, I was just inundated with DMs of people trying to secure their spots. So I assume once we pass the all-time high, like, you know, solidly, and we don't look back, and we're creeping up there. Because, well, I'll get your opinion on this. Obviously, so the only thing I've determined so far was, and was kind of cheeky, I put out a tweet that, you know, said, presuming that like this party should be for maximalists, and all 4 answers were yes, just in different languages, right? Sure. And so that much is clear. Like, this is a party for maximalists. But then how to you know, figure out how to populate the guest list, you know, effectively is the next big question. So what do you guys think? What's your opinion?
So I think you do it Bitcoin style. First come, first serve. The first ones that recognize the value of the party, you get to go to the party. Rack and stack them, baby. So the first ones, you know, the first ones that recognize the value of Bitcoin, you know, the Hal Finney's. Well, I'm sorry, he's part of that triumvirate I've talked about of creating this. No, when you talk about the cypherpunks, you talk about everyone that that had a paper wallet. I mean, people that have been here since that time and haven't sold yet, they get the first ticket, baby. To me. Oh, except there's only one level above that. It's the rest of us that bought in December 2017 because we've never seen a bull run. Never seen a bull run. So yeah.
I think that that Puppy here has a good point. I like that the people holding Bitcoin today or holding the most Bitcoin or whatever were the ones that early on took the chance, allocated savings to what, you know, early on was more risky, and it's becoming more stable and safe over time. And I think this year many of us are saying Bitcoin is the safest place to put their savings. That's how I look at it now. It's not even an investment. This is money, and this is the safest thing to do right now. It's the most conservative bet you can take.
I got to jump in on this because there's something I never knew if I would ever talk about it on one of our shows or with any guest. But Michael Saylor was it on that CNBC show? I can't remember, but the lady was trying to beat him down. Oh, is your company a Bitcoin company or this company? And multiple times just trying to beat him down with it. And he's trying to explain to her about, look, I got my P&L. We're still a company. However, I'm taking my asset. And I never understood her line of questioning. So, John, did you see that part? And what were your thoughts on it?
Well, first to close out on the 100K party talk, one of the things I like, or one of the ideas was, like, sure, you could, the people that got in the space, early, that's definitely one cohort. But another one I like is people that are actually contributing in some way. If you're podcasting, if you've written books, if you've written articles, like what a couple days after the podcast, the HODL Depot put out a set, like a party primer music set, and he integrated some of the like shut the fuck up, you're scaring Raoul Powell, and other little bits from the space, right? And I think that would be cool to make some kind of incentive around people just expressing themselves in this space by saying that maybe that would enhance the the likelihood that you get an invite. So I kind of like that people that put stuff out there and express themselves. I think that I'm leaning towards that.
Yeah,
I like that, John. People allocating time for free to be inform and educate and entertain people. Why it's Bitcoin only, and trying to help steer people away from scams. What I'm doing here is just obviously making a case for Puppy and I and our to our buddies there. But I understand you want to close it out because you've probably been talking about nothing else than tickets for this party for the last month or two. I get it.
It hasn't been that bad, to be honest with you. I actually haven't paid it after the first wave of DMs and stuff. I just haven't really considered it yet because I just figure there's a bunch of time, but who knows how much time there is. But to your question about Saylor on CNBC, I saw a 2-minute clip where the girl was just refusing to accept his response effectively, and it was weird. But I mean, what do you expect from legacy media people? People just don't get it. They're starting to appreciate that this is a credible asset, and that hasn't been the case for a long time. It's been derided, or it's been marginalized for a long time. But now with all the big names that have come in and the market cap and the new all-time high, people are having to at least say, okay, it's real enough. But that girl clearly doesn't get it. And most people in the mainstream media don't understand what's truly happening here yet. So you're going to get all sorts of those stupid ass questions of prominent Bitcoiners in the next run, because media is just trying to figure out what this is. Whereas in this space, we've got literally thousands of hours of recordings and tons of great articles and books that are actually investigating this stuff and really fleshing it all out. But that's not the format for mainstream TV sound bites. So we're going to get all those ridiculous takes probably for a while.
So he's too nice sometimes, I think, Michael Saylor, because quite honestly, well, in a way, because listen, if we just pop up to $22,000, all I can say to her is, well, listen, in August, I took $425 million. I just turned it into $850 million. Okay. He just almost doubled his money. What is he at now? 688? He's absolutely killing it. And she's going to sit there and ask him questions.
MicroStrategy, the stock today too, it was up like 25% or something ridiculous.
Yeah, that's our bait. Wow. That's our bait. The first ETF, man.
Yeah,
yeah, but to that extent, like her questions were, like she wasn't getting it, but they were somewhat valid because she was trying to say like, wasn't she saying like, isn't this an ETF now? And he was saying, no, it's still business. We still have P&L and we still have, you know, revenue and stuff. But the fact is like over the last month, the appreciation of their Bitcoin position is equivalent to like over 10 years of operating income. So
got it.
You know, it's a big deal.
That's a hobby. It's a hobby for him. Oh, I'm sorry, Anders. Was I talking over you again? I'm sorry. First time ever.
You're actually talking quite a bit, but I'm enjoying it because you have good things to say and entertaining. I just want to say, I mean, I think it's fair that she asks the question. It's because you know not everyone understands Bitcoin yet, so it's a question that maybe a lot of people have. But once he answers, you gotta you just gotta lay off there. It's obvious. I mean, it's so logic that. You know, they're in the business of business intelligence. They're running a business there where they're making money. Why would they stop doing that? I mean, they're just choosing to preserve their value in a better way. And he will be doing that, Michael Saylor, even when Bitcoin has taken over as money of the world, because it is the best store value. The fact that he can now, profit from the fact that he can see that Bitcoin is the best store value before it has entirely played out and basically make a value increase on that is to his benefit. It's great. It's foresight. But obviously he's still running a business and making money. So why would he stop doing that? And Puppy, you can take the word while
I can go. Okay, listen. Listen.
You can go while I get a refill here.
No. Listen. Let me go first. Here's what I love about it. You know, the more I learn about Michael Saylor, it's like, dear God, is there anything the guy doesn't do? He's brilliant, but when you find out about, think about
the last like 6 to 8 weeks he's had.
Yeah,
you know, just between the MicroStrategy, the appreciation of their treasury holdings, his personal investment in Bitcoin, the timing of his move, like he must be feeling pretty good right now, and his board and his executive team, like he must be a bit, you know, he's getting all the praise right now, I would imagine, because it was just such a timely move, and it's paid off so quickly.
I did a meme once on him. It's just after it happened, man, that jump up, and it was the old one from Seinfeld with Kramer, who happens to get this hat off the street, and he looks like a pimp walking down the street. And I said, this is Michael Saylor walking into his boardroom today, because he timed it. So, and I guarantee if it would have been his way, they would have bought in April. You know, they would have bought so much earlier. So I joke about on Twitter, because I took my stimulus check in April and just threw it into Bitcoin at $7,000. Because as a joke, I just want to say, I told Andrews this, I want to see where this goes. If the Fed would just print and buy Bitcoin, where would it go? And that was, I think 0.17, 0.1689, whatever. But that $1,200 is now, I think, maybe $3,300. If we just would, if companies would just printed their damn money, or countries, and bought Bitcoin, they're living the dream right now.
Imagine how it highlights the stupidity of the fiat currency monetary system, where a central bank can just right now go out and print $50 billion and buy up Bitcoin. And that value is taken away from people that are holding fiat currency. It just highlights, you know, how stupid it is. They can just print money for themselves and go out and buy a real asset.
Yeah. But, you know, obviously they're worried that will fulfill the prophecy sooner, which will sow the seeds for their own demise. So, like, I agree, you know, if I had that power, I'd definitely be doing it. But you know, I love all the different levels of this thing and how it's playing out. But you know, last thing about Saylor and his company, it's like no disrespect to him, but you know, Microsoft was a dog for the last 20 years, right? Like after the .com bubble, that stock has basically hasn't done anything. and now, you know, vivified, rejuvenated, right? Like got a charm from Bitcoin, and now, you know, not the stock is performing extremely well. They're going to have a war chest of money to do whatever the hell they want with. You know, it's a lot of companies are going to notice that and probably follow the same blueprint.
So when will MicroStrategy buy Microsoft? Just kidding.
Listen, man. Of course, we all listen to most of the MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor interviews. But I remember one interview, and I don't know if I heard it in any other one. He didn't tell the story too often, but he wrote down his own company stock from, like, I don't know, hundreds of dollars down to pennies. He wrote it down. And so that guy, that told me then he had balls of steel that he could handle Bitcoin. You need the right CEO that can handle any kind of volatility. But to ride his own company stock down and back up, he wasn't fired, but he kept it going. I mean, I love it. You couldn't create a better CEO to represent Bitcoin in the world. You just couldn't, with that understanding.
Some of the people I respect the most, they're the ones that stick to their own conviction of when something has value. It's the same type of people that don't look at the price as the quality tag of an asset. Like Bitcoin price goes down, oh, I must sell it because it must be worth less. Bitcoin price goes up, I must buy it because it's better. But the ones that make their own analysis, like Michael Saylor did when the stock was going down, feeling, look, it's undervalued. Why would I sell when it's undervalued? But John, I want to ask you. So I mean, I know you don't really care much about price, which I think is awesome. But when do you think the 100,000 would be on the table?
Well, you know, conventional wisdom is sometime Q4 2021 or Q1 2022. But, you know, with all of this, and my quote unquote base case was like, you know, the next 10 years is when we see the bulk of this adoption in Bitcoin. And, you know, 10 years from now, whatever, Bitcoin's in the millions, if not higher. But there just seems to have been so many accelerants this year that makes me think that whatever the timelines were, they have to be pushed forward now. And it's like, because what Saylor's case was interesting to me for was not only everything we've already discussed, but it was the fact that someone who had everything, you know, a billionaire, yachts, houses, you know, stock portfolio, made a shitload of money on Facebook and Amazon and Google and all that stuff, was still drawn into this with the same degree of gravity and same degree of, like, you know, imbued zealotry as the rest of us. So it's like, which made me think, okay, like, it's not just because we're on the up and up, like we're ascending and we're aspirational and there's hopium that we're feeling this way. Obviously that's a part, and we've got to try to make sure to keep that in check. But, like, I think it's just a quality of what this whole phenomenon represents, what Bitcoin represents, what the community is a thing that causes people to like go down that rabbit hole so hard and fast and be transformed through the process of doing that. And, like, that's happened to relatively so few people so far. But the fact that it happens in such a similar way, and back to the point about, like, what I like to discuss on my show is that process. But the fact that it seemed like very few people seem to be impervious to that once they cross the event horizon and the rabbit hole, like, I just feel like that means it could play out really, really quickly, because, like, the degree to which it seems obvious to all of us, because, like, I'm sure we all sit around sometimes, we're like, holy shit, like, this is just so obvious, like, how this is going to play out, that same, like, obviousness is going to land on the finance bros and the corporate execs and the state treasurers and all those people, and like, they may not be transformed like Saylor, but there's also a good chance that, like, they will start to go down the rabbit hole and be transformed in a similar way as many of us have been. And so, if that's all the case, all you need is, like, a little bit more of a tipping point. And I think next year is going to be wild for corporates and stuff like that. And then once it's obvious, then we're off to the race. Then it's a race. then actual race. Like we're still kind of jockeying for position at the starting block right now. But like once big corporate, like more big corporates come through, like your Squares, your PayPals, Apple's, Amazon's, you know, Guggenheim's, whoever, like once that's like not a one-off and not a 10-off, once it's just like, it's evident that that has to be part of your strategy, then it's just like, how do we do it, and how quickly can we get it done, and how much territory can we stake on this thing? And once that race starts, the game theory could play out really quickly, and you know, in a very face melting sort of way. So you know, I don't know, it could be 100K by next summer easily.
What I'm laughing at, I think about it in these terms. Think of a cart being pulled by a horse, and you have one with two wheels that are shaped like a triangle, and then someone comes along and says, "Look, I got one that's shaped like a square," and so on. They keep adding more. Bitcoin's the first wheel. Bitcoin is the wheel of the economy. You know, the economy we have now is just ridiculous that this technology exists and people still believe it. That's the worst part of it all to me. And it hurts in many ways because it affected our family so much. It affects our family from our grandparents, parents, down to even our children, that we're raising them in this society where they believe the value of this dollar, this thing called a dollar, that hasn't been such in over 50 years. And even before that, it was losing value. You know, Bitcoin's an eye opener. And once you get it, you get it. I remember going around trying, you know, I was the new convert, trying to tell all my friends about it. They would look at me like I'm crazy. I'm just crazy, dude. And I got to a point where I realized that those fields have to be plowed first. Those fields have to be plowed. They have to be plowed. Well, not in the sense. No, they have. If you don't have your own personal education system behind it or your own reading, you don't get it. You know, what plowed my fields were things like the creature from Jekyll Island. When you find out about the Federal Reserve being founded, when you read about Ayn Rand, when you read, you know, Atlas Shrugged and What is Money, when you see bureaucracy in government, what is fair and not fair. Once the field is plowed, man, you're ready to you get Bitcoin in an instant.
Agreed.
So yeah.
On the note of product placement, which we love doing in this show, John.
Oh, what's that?
I'm just saying, I enjoy. There's nothing like Lindt milk chocolate. I'm a big sucker for that, and it's so good with the coffee. John, I just want to ask you, because you mentioned before, I didn't quite hear it. You said something about it could be 10,000 by next summer. Can you? I heard you wrong, right? Or what were you saying?
Oh, 10,000.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on satellite internet right now. If I'm a bit choppy, but no, I said it could be 100K by next summer. Like that's how things could accelerate. I mean, it could be 100K by Q1 2021. I mean, that wouldn't shock me and quick, but it, you know, so who knows? But I just think it's almost inconceivable to me that this doesn't continue on its current trajectory, and I think it continues to accelerate. And once it accelerates to a certain degree, like once the quote unquote race starts, like it could get real weird real quick. And because of the supply constraints of this thing, because it's so scarce, because more and more people are waking up to how special this is, and they're not putting it on the market. Like your Bitcoin right now is already worth $10 million, probably. You know, I know mine is. So, you know, who's selling?
Yeah, no, I totally get you. And
I mean per Bitcoin, I mean, that's
in my mind. Yeah,
you're not going to be selling for anything less than that, are you?
Absolutely not, unless forced to, you know, for some reason or another. But I just want to touch back upon what you said about, you know, this could go quick and things are different. I agree. So this whole COVID financial stimulus, even, you know, what I call quantitative easing on steroids, you know, each time the bear markets have been shorter, Last time it was only 12 months. I think the next one easily could just be 6 months, or it could be taken completely off the table because of COVID stimulus. Also, if we look at the halving bull runs, each time that, last time was less steep than the 13, and it was supposed to be, if we look at, if stock to flow drives price, which I believe, because the acceleration of stock to flow actually has come down a little bit, as I've explained many times. We were supposed to have a little bit slower Bitcoin price increase this time compared to 16, 17, yet we are above that. So it is different, and we are, right now we are heading, in my opinion, we're heading to a hyper Bitcoinization, and on the flip side of that is hyperinflation of fiat currency. No doubt about it. The big question is whether we'll have a small, maybe 6 months bear market before the next increase kicks off, as anticipation up to 2024 halving. But the end game is near. That's what I'll say.
Oh, was that a question?
No, it was a statement. The end game is near.
I absolutely agree. One thing I would posit towards John, because this is one of the fascinating thing from Saylor's argument, and when you come in and you hear not only digital gold, you got Roger Ver, Bitcoin Cash, and my white paper, peer to peer. We got to share. Money's got to be exchanged. This dude he created an entirely new narrative to me. It's an entirely new narrative to me that you would own a digital asset and never sell it, and would just leverage it in the future. I mean, to me, that
that
Go ahead,
Saylor
man.
interview. That Saylor interview has orange pilled a lot of people. Like people have messaged me, and even family members who obviously I've been, giving them the fire hose of Bitcoin for a long time, and it just doesn't really land. But you get the credibility of someone like Saylor, and then the way he articulates things, and in the podcast, he's literally like, you take some money, you set aside what you can save, you funnel it into Bitcoin, and you never ever sell it. And for whatever reason that landed, and people are just like, how can I, how do I go about so? And again, that's the point, right? Like I think we've done the work of really trying to poke holes in this throughout the years and ongoing. And, I feel like we sometimes forget that people are going to see it similarly to what we're going to see it like eventually, maybe not as soon, maybe, we're in the early adopter cohort or whatever, but like all of these qualities that we always talk about and that we're very excited about, and we think other people are going to recognize them at some point. Maybe not the man on the street per se, but fund managers and central banks and people, a lot of capital around, are going to recognize it. They're going to see how special it is, and they are going to have the same anxiety about being chronically short and not having staked their claim on the network, and they're going to have to rectify that. And the way they're going to rectify that is exchanging their shitty fiat money for this money. And that's how it can get really squirrely really fast when that actually kicks off. So it's going to be a wild ride. That's the thing. Like, we all better strap in for a crazy time, because there's going to be obviously lots of unexpected things that happen. And even though it seems like there's a lot of tailwinds right now, there's going to be regulatory issues that spring up, and we're going to have to be adaptable. We're going to have to be plan for certain eventualities and stuff like that. But right now it does seem that there's a lot of tailwinds, and it does seem like there's not a lot of obstacles in the way of this thing, and in fact obstacles seem to be coming down. So I think people are just gonna see what we've been seeing very soon.
Hey, I was just going to say, Anders was getting ready to have a drink of coffee, but then he sensed you were getting ready to stop talking, and he put it down because he was going to jump right in. No, Anders, not this time.
Okay, so thank you for giving me the word there, Poppy. I really appreciate that. I just want to say real quick that what I was talking about before with the price increasing faster than like kind of expected or what it was supposed to in terms of stock to flow acceleration, and probably thanks to COVID stimulus. It could also just be that initial stage of the S curve adoption that it's becoming clear enough to enough people. My man Greggy in the chat is asked. He wants to know, John, what you think of the bet that I have going with him and Puppy here. And I gotta say, I entered this bet before I saw the price was actually accelerating faster. No. Accelerating faster than the last halving. So I think they have an increased chance of winning. So what I was saying is, I think there'll be at least a 50% bear market type of correction in 2022. And I have a bet with Greg on that, who says it won't happen. This what is at stake is actually a steak dinner at some nice steak restaurant, unlimited steak and beverage. So Poppy, being bullish, jumped in and said he'll accept just a 40% correction for the bet. So I have that bet going with those two. Whether there'll be a 40% or 50% correction, and Greggy wants to know what your Poppy, you want to say something before? Let you say something before we ask Jonathan's opinion, please.
Okay, well, listen, all I'll say is this, man. There was a comedian that's asking for who are the best people to represent Bitcoin. Who are the best people to represent Bitcoin? And everyone's going, Safadine. Obviously, we get some others in there, some breed love. Man, I'm rolling in, man. I'm taking some of my macro guys, man. I'm taking some Preston Pish to best represent. I know macro gets, a bad sort of take sometimes, but yeah, I'm rolling in with those guys and Michael Saylor. Those are my top four. Take any order you want. So yeah, this one to me, this is the one where we escape to the upside, as they would say. So I leave it up.
So is the bet just at like there's a 40% drawdown?
Yeah, if there will be a either 40% or 50% drawdown in 2022 from, let's say the price rocks up to $350 or $500,000, and the bet is, I say that from there we'll get either a 50 or 40% drawdown before the final. In my opinion, there will be no more bear markets, and we'll just in anticipation of the 2024 halving and beyond, Bitcoin has it will be taking up like 30-40% of total global monetary value, and will just keep escaping, and it'll be all over for fiat. So the question is about the 2022 halving, if we will see a 40 or 50% drawdown.
The 2024 halving?
No. So in that was
in 2022. Will we see
in 2022 where it would be the normal timing of a bear market? After a FOMO peak, somewhere in 350, 500, will there be a 40 or 50%?
I mean, who the fuck knows? It's totally possible, right? It's totally possible, because things get exuberant and a lot of momentum. Nothing grows, even nature, things kind of expand, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So it's entirely possible, yes. But I think what you're saying eventually, and I don't know what that level is, but obviously when this takes up, a majority market share of global money, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%, well, then it's unlikely that you'll see such dramatic volatility in general, but such drawdowns, because it will be so ingrained as money, and be the speculative component of capitalizing on the asymmetry of information about what this is going to ultimately be will be less and less and less and less. This cycle, I think, it's still entirely possible that we have a lot of exuberance and a big old dirty drawdown. But maybe not, maybe not. Like, because this is the thing.
No.
It depends on how people come in. And like, I think even the run up we've just had has been really fast. And like, if people are coming in having listened to like Michael Saylor and they get the DCH and they're like, I'm squirreling away a certain amount on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, and I'm never going to touch it for 10 plus years, then that, you create that hodl floor that maybe, evens out some of the volatility. But, like, there's still lots of greedy people in the world. There's still lots of people that think they can trade this thing. And also what we saw in March was like, there's also the fiat legacy system is still so huge and ingrained that obligations that emerge as a result of perversions and turbulence and volatility in that system are still going to affect Bitcoin in certain ways, So if you've got big players that have big positions in Bitcoin, and then whatever currency risk, bond risk, bond events, whatever, create liquidity problems in the legacy system, then they might just have to liquidate positions in order to cover those events. And so that could be another reason for volatility. Like, because I think the easy assumption to make is that the legacy system is going to have more and more volatility as it unwinds, right? So the legacy fiat system, there's going to be a lot of activity there in terms of turbulence. And so to the extent that people that are playing in both systems need to juggle the two to cover their losses or to cover the turbulence, they still are going to be fairly tethered to each other. So this run, I think I'd probably take the bet that we might have a 40% drawdown after a bull run high. But
who said 40?
Next run, maybe not.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is if there is a bear market, and I'm starting to lean more and more bullish in terms of thinking it'll happen enough, as in, that it potentially won't happen now. But if it is there, it will be the last one, in my opinion. Puppy.
Yeah. So look, how many, the people ignored it for years, rightfully so. What is this thing? Nerd money, get money for gamers. What is that? A penny for a Bitcoin? Sure, why not? A nickel for a Bitcoin, and it grows from there, man. The brilliance of Bitcoin was how it was designed to gain more people to understand it while cutting its own supply. That's the brilliance to me. You cut the supply while you get more people involved. I mean, wow. I mean, the smartest people in the world right now, you know what they do? They get appointed to the Federal Reserve and say, "Oh, we're just going to print more money." That's brilliance in America today. We print more money. You go on 60 Minutes, and the guy on 60 Minutes says, so basically you just added 20% to the supply, and then the smartest guy in the world that runs your money system says, yes, that's what we just did. And the rest of America cheers. It's absolutely crazy. No, the brilliance, man, supply going down, demand goes up, and you do it in the most natural way forward, 210,000 blocks, we'll call it roughly 4 years. It's a perfect storm. A perfect storm that, oh, by the way, let's throw some gasoline on it in March with a pandemic. Just throw it on there, man.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
It is. So, as people start to understand value, because the more you talk to your families, I know the first time you ever say this, you're crazy, you're the nutcase. The ones that are interested, look, they read about it, they sort of get it, and you move on from there.
That's the thing. Like, I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say,
yeah,
when we've had the conversations at dinners, at social events, where the subject comes up, it's not dismissed because people have done the homework and they disagree with any element of it, or they poke holes in it. It's dismissed because they're like, they either don't believe it could ever happen, or they don't know enough about it. And just like, you can change something that's so fundamental or so ingrained. Like, it's dismissed without the proper, with very weak arguments. But when people actually do the homework and they consult all the incredible resources that are available now, you really, like, you have to have a severe case of BDS to dismiss it if you've done the homework. And I say that, but most people that have BDS the BDS has prevented them from doing the homework. Like your Schiffs and your Rubinis and your legacy economist type people, they haven't done the homework. They haven't read all the great material that's out there. They haven't spent the time to look at this seriously. They're just rejecting it outright. And more fool them. It's going to be excellent to continue to dunk on them for many years to come.
This reminds me, sorry, Anders, to jump in again on you. But this reminds me of, I think it was like ABC, or I'm trying to think of what morning show it was. And they basically came out, I remember at the time saying, okay, Savannah, so tell us about this thing called the internet. What is this thing all about?
Katie Couric and Matt Lauer. Yeah. They were on it was like the Today Show 94.
So we call it the internet or the email.
What's that A thing? That's what they were saying. They're like, what's that A thing? And then someone was like, I think that's at. And they were like, what do you mean at? And they're like, and it seems so silly now, right?
Yeah.
This is where we are. Go ahead, Anders. Go ahead. I would need you.
Thank you, Puppy.
Into the wild.
I appreciate all your talking. No, I really do. I agree, John, that the people that disagree with you around the Thanksgiving or Christmas table or, whatever, they're the ones that just haven't researched it yet. And or, as you're saying, they can't figure that such a big change can come about, just like the majority of people in the 100 years, 120 years ago thought that the automobile could never replace the horses, because horses were 99.99% of transport. It's a little bit the same way of thinking. And I just want to say something as well, that our common friend Daniel Prince, who's also in the chat, what you were saying earlier was also, we heard it from Daniel when he was on here last week, that the rebalancing of portfolios, there are some people now allocating, and there will be the next 12 months allocating huge sums of fiat currency to buy Bitcoin, that are in a position where they're allowed to have a certain percentage allocated to Bitcoin. And they will be forced to rebalance and sell some of it, because they're not Michael Saylor, they're not John Wallace, they're not like the rest of us believing this is the end game, but they're in it for an investment, and they can't have Bitcoin taking up 90% of that professional portfolio. So when they rebalance, there will be that, as Daniel said, that supply entering the market, and all you need is, as what I'm saying when I'm discussing with Greggy and Poppy in terms of whether this correction can happen in 2022, all we need is some trigger that will put the people that bought Bitcoin into Bitcoin because the price was going up. All you need is that trigger where it starts going down. They haven't done the due diligence, the research, the education yet. And when they see the price going down, they'll be scared and they'll sell. And that has a self-enforcing negative spiral effect until the hodlers step in and say, wow, it's cheap. It's only $250,000 now. Let me get some Bitcoin. So that's why I believe it's still, overwhelmingly that the chance is there for this drawdown. I mean, this is one of the reasons that both you and Daniel are bringing up.
Yeah, I think it's impossible that that's how it plays out, but it could also be the case that time comes and they realize that, like, oh, that 10% of my portfolio in Bitcoin has become 50% because of the appreciation. I should rebalance now. But what the hell am I going to rebalance into? What am I going to go in? Like, if we're at that stage, it's like, well, are you going to go into cash? Are you going to bonds? Are you going to the stock market? Like, those are all becoming increasingly risky bets, and so it's conceivable that at time, with the kind of broader narrative being more established about what Bitcoin is, as well as the riskiness of potential alternatives, people will just say, maybe we keep it in Bitcoin. Like, maybe we just, it's a way bigger part of our portfolio now, but like, there's not a lot of great options here, and Bitcoin is increasingly making sense to us, so maybe we keep it. That's a possibility too. I don't know which one is the greater possibility for this run, probably the former, but who knows? Things can change.
So I'll jump in on this one. Michael Saylor, he threw everything. He threw the wrench into the works, or for my British friends, the spanner into the works. Look what happened, dude. You come in, he went 100% in. This wasn't a guy that just went in. Well, he went 85% at first. It wasn't like he went 1%, 5%, 10%. He went
No, he threw down hard.
85%.
It's amazing.
He threw down very hard. So here's the problem that people have going forward. Every CEO in the world right now following him have to say, Jesus, he went 85. We got to do at least 5. We got to do at least 10. He upped the game on what they got to do,
He
right?
set the bar pretty high. Yeah.
He said, hey, come join me, motherfuckers. What he said. Come join me if you can. You know?
Yeah, well,
so
that's the thing, right? We've been talking about like a 1 to 5% allocation for corporates when it happens, but to have one come down with like 80+%, now they're all going to be looking at higher percentages, you know? So
yeah, he doubled. Look,
and that's, you know,
anyone that is going to go 1% is going 3% after that one.
Exactly. And, you know, I think another part of this thing that's playing out, which is very interesting, is I think a lot of people that don't even get Bitcoin are going to be coming into the space because they effectively don't want to be shamed. They don't want to be the one with their egg on their face to, you know, to have to explain why they didn't get in. So even though they don't really understand it all right now, whether they be on a board or whether they be managing a fund, whatever, I think, you know, to avoid future shame, to be able to say like that, you know, they have a strategy towards it. They're going to come in preemptively prior to really understanding the case for it, and then they'll develop a case after the fact, after getting in, because like there's a real sense of, or what I see, like the potential for shame that's coming along if you don't get into it. And, you know, it's I think that's going to be a strong motivator for people to dive in.
So question for you, is shame part of like game theory? I mean, I know game theory from watching A Beautiful Mind. You hear about this stuff, or to me, the beautiful thing about game theory was always, it's not who's coming in, the numbers, but it's the change in the amount of money coming in. Okay. So do you know how many people had to come in 4 years ago to equal what Michael Saylor did?
Right. Exactly.
Thousands. So I love game theory. So does shame work into game theory?
I would think so. Yeah.
Everything, I guess, has an influence on game theory, right? Because game theory is supposed to take everything into account that can influence an outcome. And since I managed to grab the word from Puppy, I just want to take the opportunity to say cheers, Don. Cheers, Puppy.
Cheers.
Cheers to both of you. Cheers to the chat.
You got your little Heineken. That's cute. Yeah.
And here we go with the IPA. Yeah.
I remember Heineken was one of the first beers I had. So I grew up, just some background, I grew up playing English football, as we call soccer here in the U.S., but that's in the 70s and 80s. And I remember I was on a traveling team to Europe, and Heineken was, when we landed, my coach said, well, you guys are 18. You can have a beer now over here legally. Just keep it at 1 or 2. And Heineken was like the first beer I think I ever had.
Nice. And on
not
that
a bad start, I suppose.
Yeah, not too bad.
On that, so this is for you, Puppy, and taking you back to your youth. And since we're touching upon football, I just also want to shout out to Maradona, one of the greatest ever in the game.
Yeah.
That may he rest in peace. And he's a good example why you kids should stay away from drugs, because apparently a high level of cocaine abuse led his heart to have, I think it was 38% capacity, and it was a matter of time, unfortunately. So stay away from drugs.
Good advice.
Yeah, look, that's always good advice in a way, but it's also, look, some of the greatest the greatest artists in the world, the creators, you need some extra motivation. From Jimi Hendrix on down, there's something else you did. He was larger than life, though. He'll be always a legend in the football community. And man, what a dribbler, what a player. But the outpouring of love I saw for him was absolutely amazing. The videos I saw of him with other people, he loved people genuinely. He was a man of the people, and that's rare.
And one of the few guys who could score in the World Cup final with his hand and get away with it. I mean, that takes an exceptional. And I'm saying this out of respect for Daniel Prince and all the other British fellows out there.
Hey, look at my, go back in my timeline, because I shared a couple runs by I shared the initial run first. The initial run by Maradona through the entire English defense. I made the mistake of saying British, and man, dear God, the Scottish and the Irish, and the Welsh, they piled on me. But I'll tell you what, that guy, he tore two of the greatest goals you'll see in history in one game by one man. He's a legend. So let him rest in peace. He lived his life as he felt compelled to. He would have been a Bitcoiner. Totally. He probably was. I think he was a Bitcoiner. Go find his keys.
Definitely a steak guy. John, are you interested at all in football, as we call it in Europe?
Not at all, no.
Right. So let's go back.
The only sport that really, the only must-see TV for me is MMA these days. So that's the only sport I'm really into.
Nice. Do you practice martial arts?
Most of the time. I'm like, I was living in Thailand before I got stuck in Canada, where I am right now. But my girlfriend and I live close to a gym, so we go most mornings for a Muay Thai workout and mix in some other disciplines every now and then. But yeah, mainly just for fun and to stay in shape. But it's far more engaging exercise than just going to the gym. So that's how it kind of started. But yeah, it's the most exciting sport to me.
Right, and that's you're still doing some of that, the Muay Thai?
Well, not in Canada. I've got a punching bag in the garage, so I use that. But I miss the real deal. So hopefully it's not too long before. I mean, who the fuck knows, right? About when things open up. I mean, this thing is probably going to drag on for a while yet, and there's going to be lots of weird conditions for traveling. And I know a lot of us are probably going to have apprehensions and be resistant to some of them. So we shall see when things open up again. But hey ho.
Personally, I spent most of my years in martial arts in Wing Chun. I don't know if you heard about it, but I really like that. It was what Bruce Lee studied before creating his own martial arts in San Francisco, I believe it was. Puppy.
Yeah.
Yes, Wing Chun, I believe it translates into open hand.
Right.
Bruce Lee was Bruce Lee's the absolute king, man. Come on. What can you say about Bruce Lee?
He's a legend. I used to love watching his movies when I was a kid, and I got the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, the book, on my shelf. He's the legend.
Yeah, empty your mind.
It's funny you bring it up because I was joking earlier. With someone about what do you know about martial arts? I said, man, growing up, I read books about ninjas, and I had throwing stars. And I remember my closet door was just littered, throwing stars at it.
Dude, I wanted those so bad. Do you remember back in the day, like you'd get the karate magazines, and in the back they'd have all this crazy shit you could order, like the stars and the throwing knives and the nunchucks and whatever the fuck else. Yeah, and I wanted those stars so bad, but I wasn't allowed to get them.
What? Oh, they were so fun, man. I just would litter the door with them. Yeah.
I remember
this here, Canada, bro. We're real apprehensive about weapons. So even the throwing stars were off limits.
This is good stuff. Hey, you know what? You know what would be a great thesis or any kind of. It's interesting because I saw one guy. He's the first engineer, and I don't know if he's from Australia, but he's the first one to ever offer up a thesis on Bitcoin, and he got approved. And he was so proud of it. And I was proud of him for it. A guy that can offer up a theory of Bitcoin where you can get approved for your master's or your PhD, I think is brilliant. And I go beyond that to think, oh, absolutely. So what I think is interesting to me, and I saw when Andrew and I first met, it was only because, well, not in a gay way, of course, Anders. Don't go there. But what was
I
cool
didn't
was
go there. I don't know what's in your mind, Puppy, but I didn't go there.
I
that's
guess
for
we
the
know
off show
now,
stuff.
Puppy.
Anyways,
Look,
John, so
watch it.
we're having a lot of fun in that
No,
DM.
no, I'm not done. No, not done yet. Not done yet.
No,
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 so
you
was
go, you go. While you
so
go,
listen.
I'm gonna get another one because I'm trying to catch up to you, Puppy.
Yeah. So what's really interesting to me was what brings Bitcoiners together. What is it that brings Bitcoiners together? Because in my city, dear God, I can never find anyone with the same interest level. They don't get it. But this international coalition of people that get it, and man, it's like boom, South Africa, Denmark, England, Australia. You finally get these people that come together. And this goes to something I've been thinking about a lot recently is everything happens in a natural way. You talked about that with, I think, Michael Saylor, the natural way. You cannot have this universal money. You cannot have this universal way of communicating with value until everything else had been built before you. The oil, electricity, everything builds upon itself. So most of my friends right now, honestly, are mostly around the world. They're mostly people that have I don't know about the style of upbringing. I think it'd be a fascinating study of how were we all interrelated? What is our background? What was common to the way we grew up? What do we value that bring us together? So yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah,
It's
baby.
got to be one.
Absolutely, which has been taken away from us more and more by the fiat monetary system. I mean, if slavery is benefiting and owning someone else's work, it really is what the fiat system is doing. By diluting your savings, they're taking a percentage of your hard work away from you every year. I mean, modern society with central banks is just one huge slavery.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And to your point about, all of us coming together over this common interest, that would be interesting to investigate. And I think some are apparent and some less apparent. But, one of the things is I know a lot of Bitcoiners feel is like, you go out into your normal kind of social life, and the more you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it can, in some cases, it can be harder to relate to people that haven't gone on a similar journey, right? And that's why we probably connect so well with all the Bitcoiners that we talk to on podcasts and mix it up with on Twitter, and maybe sense a growing gap between those in our more immediate environments, just because the disparity of recognizing these things is growing ever larger. Now, it's great when others in our environment start to see it, and you can kind of cultivate that, and you can jam out on the subject, which is awesome, rather than like in-person Bitcoin hang discussions. But yeah, I think we all feel that to some degree, and I make this point all the time on the podcast is whatever period of time is necessary to look back and how quickly hyper Bitcoinization happens. Let's say 50 years, maybe it's 100 years. But looking back at this period in history, how we look back now with our hubris, and we look at the medieval period and we say, how could they have been so, stupid with their religion? And how could they have killed in the name of religion like that? Or how could they have believed this about science or this about medicine or whatever? And we're kind of high and mighty in our current time looking back and being like, oh, so obvious. How come they didn't see it? Same exact thing is going to be the case for this time. And we may even be judged more harshly than we judge our predecessors now, because the scale of the deceit is so enormous. It's so egregious. It's like it's a global, central banking and the fiat monetary system is a global cartel right now, and what it's doing to suppress ultimately, the human spirit, and what it does for siphoning off our time and our energy and our labor is an absolute injustice. And I think it'll be seen for that in the not too distant future. And that's somewhat of that's both the hopeful thing in what Bitcoin provides as a solution, but it's one of the frustrating elements that that people, relatively few people, see it that way right now. But, this is the point of more and more people, like NGU brings people in, right? And then you start to get a taste for all the other ideas and concepts that are happening here.
Yeah.
And then you start to get an appreciation for other things other than just, securing your financial freedom and increasing your wealth or whatever. And that's, it's been happening since day one, and people that came before us, and there will be the people that come after us, and the bubble just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And so, this people will come to understand this. We're just in a period now where we're understanding it a little bit earlier than most.
No, I find it quite organic. When I have a 11-year-old daughter, and she's really interested actually in Bitcoin. And I tell her the one thing about it, besides someone cutting grass next door to me, what I find most interesting is how it grows. It doesn't grow by force. It never grows by force, which I love. And I don't care what side of the world you're on. No one really believes in war. But what I find fantastic about Bitcoin, it grows naturally. It grows with a sense of every value goes up and up and up because scarcity goes down and down and down. And I enjoy that to the least. There's nothing like it in the world. It's the only thing we have left to save what we have of this world. Because after this, there's nothing left but continual printing and slavery. Okay, go on, Anders. I know you want to say something.
Yeah, I just want to mention. So Plan Mark is saying, remember the days, and this is about 2 months ago when there were 4 people in the chat, and Anders would chat back. That's how early we are. Yeah, I just want to say. So what happened once was that when I was chatting back, for some reason I was locked out here at Restream, where I can see the chat from YouTube is being pulled in. And because I was locked up, I couldn't put the chats on screen anymore, so we couldn't have that at least verbal interaction and bring it on. So I stopped chatting for the simple reason I don't want to, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to ruin the chat.
That's going good. Oh, hang on 1 second.
I mean, I didn't want to get locked out, so I couldn't bring it on the screen, which I think is a fun part of our show here. So, John, going forward, or right now, what what really excites you about in Bitcoin in general? And it doesn't matter if we're talking price, developments on Taproot, Schnorr, Lightning Network. I mean, right now you're running your podcast. Is there anything in particular that really excites you?
Yeah, the culture is what excites me, because I'm kind of in the camp. I'm super pumped about everything that's coming down the pipe. But like, if Bitcoin never really changed from what it was today, like, I still think it would be a massive tool for liberation and freedom that would be very useful to humanity. But the thing that through no real choice of my own, the thing that just is naturally most appealing to me is the phenomenon of the culture that's coalescing around this thing, the kind of the new world that's emerging around it, or the Renaissance, if you will, that's happening on top of this thing. And, that's to be expected. I mean, we look at the previous Renaissance, right, that started in Florence and the Italian city-states and emerged from there. Like, I know there's a lot of different theories as to how and why that emerged when it emerged, but one of them is that, sound money was kind of reintroduced and held to a higher standard than it had been previously, and this facilitated trade and innovation and all the. I think we're going to get that on steroids, orders of magnitude more vibrant as a result of the quality of the money, as a result of how many orders of magnitude Bitcoin is in terms of being a better money was. So for me, that's what's so exciting. It's like, holy shit, like, we're right at the beginning of this brand new culture emerging around this thing. And it's it's just super fascinating to see how quickly it's evolving and how quickly it's causing a change in perspective in people and change in their behavior and change, how we all choose to interact with with each other. And so right now it's a trickle, but like just look at the last 2 years. 2 years ago, let's say the 2017 bubble, like you had a couple podcasts, you had, written stuff, but not very much. Just 2-3 years later, there's so much more content being produced, so many more ideas being shared, so much more kind of exuberance for the creativity emerging from the space. And you run that forward 2, 3, 5, 10 years, and I think you get some really, really, really amazing stuff that comes out of it. And I think that's what's most fascinating or exciting to me right now.
Absolutely, totally love that. And just quickly here grabbing the word before Puppy gets in. So I think it's really interesting that the fastest productivity growth we had in the United States ever was from 1873 to 1892. Those 20 years, productivity grew from an index 30 to an index 79. And today, where we have technology happening so fast, it's our productivity growth is slower, and in my mind, no doubt, because we have a terrible monetary system with fiat currency that is diluting all the time. Once we have Bitcoin becomes the global money standard, I'm sure that productivity growth that comes from having good money will rise again, and that is again. What we're going to discuss with Jeff Booth Tuesday next week, 1 PST, 4 p.m. Florida time. Puppy, what's your opinion? Oh, sorry, John, please go.
Well, I was just going to comment. I was going to bring up Jeff again because you mentioned when, first of all, the existing productivity. Just imagine when all we get is more access, siphoning off of existing productivity that happens within this system via the manipulation in the currency. Just imagine what things would be like if we just get that. Now put everyone on the same currency, reduce the friction between currencies and between markets, end the siloing of different countries and different markets and different people in all these places, and allow for far more frictionless transfer of value and economic exchange. Imagine the innovation and the productivity that we'll get then if this is what we're getting now under this highly suppressed and manipulated system that's siphoning off a lot of the benefit of those productivity increases. Imagine when that's all gone and we streamline everything. Like, it's going to be absolutely insane, the gains that we will realize then.
Agree.
Listen, Bitcoin agrees and then some. Bitcoin says fuck you and what you think you're going to do as a Federal Reserve, and pardon my French, but Bitcoin doesn't care, man. And that's one of my favorite memes. It's a honey badger. It's a honey badger, doesn't care. It's going to do what it will do, man. Bitcoin could care less what you think you can do. So I love when you said earlier, I was asking you for, what do you think about Bitcoin in general? And you said freedom. And there truly is freedom. It's freedom in a sense that, man, nothing can control it. Nothing can control it.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah. It's a sense of when you see it, you get it. And I honestly don't care if I share it with people. I try to share it with people. They don't get it. So I quit trying to share it. You get it or you don't. And the sooner you recognize that, the better off you'll be.
Well, that might be, the reverse psychology approach might be the most effective one. I was talking with Obi, who runs CoinFloor in the UK, and like, we're so used to talking about this so much, but what if anytime you were asked, you just be like, you wouldn't be interested. I don't think you'd get it. You wouldn't get probably it. Not for you. The people would be like, yeah, what the fuck do you mean? And like, don't treat me like that. Don't do me wrong, bro. Like, I want to know more about this. So maybe that's the way to go. But the other thing about that is, it's like, we're all extremely convicted, right? And so I'm pretty confident that this is going to happen in some way or shape or form, as we've been articulating in this space for a while. So I'm not that concerned with getting more people in as fast as possible. If anything, I'd rather have more time to accumulate. And so like convincing, especially when normie people come from the normie world and stuff, and they get by, you know, everyone trying to correct their thinking on this. I'm more and more like, do we need to do that? Like, can't we just do our thing and celebrate what this is becoming and really support our own and, you know, stack and let it play out? Because one, it doesn't need our promotion, obviously, but two, you know, are we doing our future selves a disservice by trying to accelerate this thing when, you know, faster than, you know, putting us in a position to basically stack less and having it sooner. So I'm less and less concerned of convincing people. The only reason why I do it is because it's hard for me to contain my excitement, you know. So if someone winds me up, then I'm probably gonna get too jazzed up to slow down. But you know, if my rational mind is saying like, you don't need to pitch, you don't need to convince anybody of anything.
To slow down here. Toxic happy hour. We're reaching for the 7th gear, the 9th gear. You're not allowed, like, rants. We love rants.
No, go. Hey, listen, man. Just you can go look down. You can go down my list of memes and how bad they are, and some are funny. But go down them, and you'll know. I agree. You know what? It's the truth. And you know what's great about anyone in this space that writes a meme is because it's so easy. It's so easy about the world. The world is such a lie. Money is such a lie. It's so easy to write a meme right now.
And things become so clear once you have the proper filter over it, right? So understanding money and where Bitcoin falls on that spectrum, all the other noise coalesces into like much more clear information. And it's way easier to extract insight from that and create a meme and, you know, say something about it all, because it's like, you know, it is like, to use the matrix analogy, like seeing the matrix for what it is for the first time, as kooky as that sounds to people on the outside.
No, not at all.
I just want to.
You've been quiet.
No, I'm really doing my bit. First of all, we have amazing guest dropping profound and philosophical knowledge at the same level as you, Poppy. I'm enjoying just listening. I want to take it down a notch and just ask, John, I noticed you changed your beer. And Poppy here is throwing in some water, I think, with his IPA, probably because he doesn't really like it. He's just drinking it for, you know, the show. But John, I saw you were drinking from a can. What are you having right now? It's okay if it's... what is that?
There's a club soda. It was on my table because I finished the 2 beers that I had. I'd have to go out into the garage to get a beer. So
no, it's almost 6 o'clock here. So I have my beer and I have my water. So I go back and forth.
So, Poppy, is it the same? Is it the same empty bottle you keep bringing up, or is there actually something in it? All right, there might be actually something in it. That looked almost real. John, you're joining the likes of Matt Odell that I had on. I think it was 2 weeks ago. No,
we're comparing people.
No. I'm just saying. Well, let me finish, Poppy here, right?
Good.
I'm saying that I got him to admit for the first time ever when he was on a podcast or stream or whatever, he actually finished all the alcohol that he had within reach. I'm pretty proud of that. But
Matt seems to like to go in on the whiskey during some podcasts.
Hey, man, gotta go.
It took me 7 hours to get sober afterwards, if I was sober by the time I went to bed.
Hey, you know, let me tell you something, man. This is a shout out to John Vallis here, man, and any fans watching. Here's what of Bitcoin, because a couple of ham and eggers like Anders and I, we had no one to talk to. Well, he may have, I didn't. So I reached out one day.
Not true, Puppy.
No. About 2 years ago, I had seen him on a podcast. And I said, man, this guy gets Bitcoin to me. He gets it. I'm going to reach out. So I sent just a link and he says, hey, yeah, let's talk. We talked for like almost 2 years, man. We'll talk for like 2 hours every other day. We just joked with each other, and he just said, "You know what? We got to put this on a show. I'll put it on video." So that's what I love about Bitcoiners is they don't care. Bitcoiners believe in truth and freedom and honesty. So when I had reached out to
Amen. Amen, brother.
Anders, he had said the same. Let's do it. You know what's fascinating to me? So we reached out, man, and we're reaching guys. You go through the list of everyone that are your hardcore Bitcoiners, and the first thing they say, well, actually, a shout out to Princey, Daniel Prince. Daniel Prince reached out to me when happy hour, because he realized he and I were just talking on happy hour, and I started laughing because wait, this could actually be something we can do for fun, and this is what we do. And
Yeah,
I love it.
everyone shows up, man. Like people you wouldn't expect to ever show up, they do. All right, I'll let it go now.
So, Greg, he came back in and he's saying, "Oh shit, I come back and Puppy got that lovey-dovey look in his eyes." And John, I think that as you're starting to realize, we have a lot of banter and giving shit to each other here on the show. It's part of what we do. We love, as you can see, Puppy and I love to tease each other.
It's very cute.
Motherfucker! All right, he's in forever. He's in forever.
Yeah, John. First of all, I just want to remind everyone that on the YouTube show notes right below, you'll find the link to John's Twitter. You absolutely must follow John. Sign up to his podcast. And John, definitely we're having you back on because it's so interesting to hear your deep thoughts at the level of Puppy deep, which I really appreciate. I love it. I'm here to learn something new on these toxic happy hours.
Well, I obviously appreciate the invite, and like Puppy was just saying, that's one of the amazing qualities of this space, that you've got all sorts of people from, again, like the Anons on Twitter to the big names, the Sadines and that kind of stuff. And there seems to be like a pretty consistent and general willingness to just connect with everybody else who's interested in this stuff. And it's awesome. That is again why that motherfucker Gammon saying bearish on Bitcoiners, he's just out of his goddamn mind. But but
I don't want to say what an idiot. I don't want to say what an idiot because that wouldn't be nice. But that's it. I'll just leave it there. As mHop Crypto BTC. By the way, get that crypto out of your name, please. Then our education system doesn't teach shit about dollars. I couldn't agree more. John, we have a constant appeal from Sean in the chat that wants to hear you talk about citadels, please.
Yeah, interesting topic for sure. I mean, I think it's going to be, this reward era, right, from now to the 2024 halving. I think it's going to be a pretty big issue for a lot of Bitcoiners, because I think even if regulatory wise this is greenlit in many ways, I still think the inequality and the dislocation created by the desperate attempts to continue to prop up the existing fiat system is going to create so many social problems that it could very easily be the case that Bitcoiners or wealthy people in general are vilified. I think in attempts to maintain control of a system spinning out of control, you're going to see a lot more authoritarian, heavy-handed approach to a lot of that, and that's really bad for individual freedom and sovereignty. And knowing how much Bitcoiners value that, they're probably going to look for alternatives or ways to circumvent that. That's probably going to involve some kind of jurisdictional arbitrage. So, I know people interpret citadels in different ways. Like, some people, it's the island nation that has really favorable policies where all Bitcoiners go, and it's, is that kind of a deal? Or other people see it as like a fortress in the woods, that's completely self-sufficient, where, they have their own food and their own energy, and they don't really need to interact with the crazy world that much. And I find both appealing. But it's kind of, I would put money on the fact that, well, I'm of two minds. I think a lot of people are going to have to get out of Dodge. A lot of Bitcoiners around the world are just going to are probably going to have to use that quality of Bitcoin, which is the ability to take your capital with you when you flee. I think a lot will probably have to use it for that purpose, because they're going to be forced out of the jurisdictions that they're in. On the flip side of that, I'm hopeful that for example, Wyoming, Cynthia Loomis as a senator, and what's been, some of the policies have been happening there.
Yeah.
I'm perhaps it's the case that, and there can be enough momentum in the legacy political system and enough people that are trying to advocate for this, that maybe maybe we see a fracturing of jurisdictions, and so there will be some that are far more favorable than others to principles of liberty and freedom and individual sovereignty, and that's probably where Bitcoiners will flock, wherever they be in the world, whether they be in the continental US or, island nations or Southeast Asia, who knows? But that's one thing I'm pretty certain of, is that Bitcoiners, with with using the qualities that Bitcoin allows for, are and knowing how much they value freedom and sovereignty, it's unlikely they're going to stick around and be subject to increasingly oppressive tactics and policies use the legacy system to keep it glued together as it continues to unravel. So where they emerge, who knows? There's, the sovereign individual thesis is probably going to play out to some degree. I think there's probably going to be competition between jurisdictions and stuff like that. And I think it's going to be on our doorstep pretty soon. I mean, mandatory vaccinations seem like they're going to be a thing. And I know a lot of Bitcoiners are pretty resistant to that. So, what do you do?
That shit, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it's just no. I can't say that. I can't say that in there. But we don't like that. We don't like that. Yeah. So Poppy reached the lovey-dovey level and can speak truth here. And by the way, Poppy, we've got Lucky
great
Rothana in the chat. Our lovely pro bowler from Tampa Rowdies. Poppy, take it away.
Well, what can I say? When it comes down to the nuances of Bitcoin, to me, it's truth. It is absolute truth that you recognize. It is value, the value of everything you've worked for in life, everything you poured into life that you can store and fast forward into the future. Okay. Now listen. I know in a couple of weeks, I think we have Robert Breedlove, and he's going to kick our ass with some philosophical shit, I'm sure. But when it comes down, to the ins and outs of Bitcoin, we found a way to tell one man or one woman the value you work for is saved. It is saved within you, and you can share it with yourself in the future. Only a few people know what that means in life. Only a few people understand the implications of this. Okay, so yes, I'll be the dumbass that'll be the Publord for a while to drag people in, and I'll tell them on the side.
We all know it's a cover for your brilliant mind underneath, Poppy. We all know it's just a cover.
Well, easy.
I just want to expand on what you said, John, about the citadels. Bitcoin is the first time we've had a money where people can flee from oppression with their life savings. It's the first time ever that without any issues you can flee from oppression. Where are you oppressed, Poppy, or you trying to say something?
Check 1 2 1 2. No, I wasn't done talking. You oppressed me by your speech. Check. No, go ahead. What the hell, man? Check 1 2 1 2. You think?
Well, what do you want to say, man? You got the word. Say something. Speak up.
Well, I thought I had the words until you jumped all over me, man. Come on. So
You guys are like
so
an
check
old
out.
couple. Let's
We
hear it.
are.
Yeah.
We are.
Oh,
It's the love. It's that love.
else to love.
Brotherly love.
So yes. Everything froze on me. Sorry. Danish HODL. Check him out. He's got his own show.
No, that's our show. What are you talking about? This is our show. And
It is
you,
our show.
Puppy, are bringing in great guests like John. That's why, 1 plus
That
1,
sounds great.
sometimes even more than 2.
Sounds good, man.
I believe that we're that team.
All right,
John,
let me say that.
Go.
Let me say this. So the final point on the Citadel thing is all this stuff is interim measures, right? To your point, the fact that people can flee with their money intact not only is a huge boon for the individual and their ability to preserve their freedom, but it's also a huge detriment to the jurisdiction that otherwise would have been able to keep the capital and wealth of the fleeing citizens. So in any time in history, Germany, Syria, many other places, if you decided this is far too oppressive, this is far too dangerous, I'm going to go, I'm going to take my family and look for greener pastures, preserve our life and start anew somewhere, you're going to have to leave your wealth behind, right? And so that means that not only do you have to start over again and lose the accumulated wealth that you've built up over your life, but it also means that person in charge of the jurisdiction where you left has access to you, and that props them up longer than they otherwise would be propped up. And so the fact that people are able to sequester and then take their capital with them puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the oppressors that would seek to inhibit people's freedoms. And so I think that's part of the dissolving effect that Bitcoin will have on these institutions and these jurisdictions, so that whatever our approach to citadels are, hopefully, it'll be an intermediate step, because a lot, will basically starve a lot of those existing systems of their ability to sustain themselves ultimately.
Yeah, let me jump in on this real quick, only because, man, what are we looking at now? Oh, guess what? You want to travel overseas? Where's your vaccination card? Where's your card?
Totally.
So we're gonna stop you right now because you haven't been termed clean by the government. So get ready for that one. That's all.
Yeah, you need this injection from the government because they say so.
Get ready.
You and your children. I, for one, will not stand for that. No, if that is not voluntary, they've already taken away freedom of speech with the help of big tech, where you quickly label as hate speech. Freedom of speech means everyone should be able to say whatever they want, and if they say something hateful, you should be able to make them look foolish with arguments, not just start. It's a very slippery slope, just starting to censor free speech, the freedom of assembly, which has been taken away with the COVID, and upcoming vaccine. You have to take it to be able to leave your home. It's a downhill slope. Puppy, I gotta just ask you. I know you have a hard back end, and we've been taken away 2 hours of John's time here, which is also a big ask. So what are we looking at, guys?
No, I got to take off here, but I just wanted to say to John, one of the best things I loved about his podcast was when he reached out to all the plebes or the plebs, however you want to pronounce it. Me, I love it's a plebeian, so you're a plebe. Doesn't matter. I love the fact that he just takes anyone that loves Bitcoin, and that's, to me, that's the whole Bitcoin spirit. Anyone, if you love Bitcoin, I'm with you. So John, to me, has always had one of the best shows out here. But yeah, I'll take off. And John, man, I hope you come back. I hope we do another, just a regular happy hour podcast, because it's fantastic. Your shows have opened the eyes of so many people. They really have. And you're doing the Lord's work in a way, man. You're bringing out.
Amen.
you're bringing up people that all of us would love to talk to one day. So thank you. Anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna bow out here, of course.
Yeah.
Well, before you go,
John needs some final words.
Yeah.
Well, I was just, all I was going to say was, I thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it's funny because obviously I don't see it that way, right? I'm having conversations with people that I want to speak to. And you sometimes, or at least for me, you forget that there's someone listening on the other end, even though you see numbers and on your dashboard and stuff, it just doesn't really register. And so I appreciate, the kind words and the feedback. It's great to hear, and it's great to jam with you guys. I appreciate the invite to come on and talk with you guys for a bit, and again, like you guys asked me a couple times, what makes me most bullish or what I'm most excited about in the space, and it's that this stuff is happening. That that otherwise normal people, right? For most of us, have stumbled upon something and were sufficiently intrigued to scratch that itch, and ended up going down probably a journey that none of us really expected to go on, and being so set on fire intellectually and have our curiosity ignited in such a way as a result of doing so, and finding so many things at that journey, not just financial sovereignty and control over your destiny or your freedom, for example, but finding this extremely vibrant and positive and optimistic group of people to engage with and to share ideas, refine ideas, have a laugh with. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. So I love that you guys are doing this. Anytime anybody ever asks me what's a piece of advice you would give? I mean, I don't feel in a position to do so, but all I ever say is if you express your enthusiasm or excitement for this in whatever way feels natural to you. So if it's about doing a show like this, or if it's about podcasting, it's about writing, if it's about visual art, whatever, just let it hang out, because that's what's so amazing about this, and allows us to see each other more truthfully and enhance the quality of our engagement. I love all that. So keep it up, boys.
Appreciate it.
I'll round it out. I'll round it up or out. John, I appreciate you called it an invitation, Poppy. I think I'm really excited about the dirt you have on John that made him forced him to join our Tux Happy Hour. Keep it so we can do that again. John, once again, thank you so much. It was really great having you on. I look forward to having you on again. So Poppy, keep the dirt. And we have a lot of love in the chat for your podcast, John. So just know that you're doing a great thing, not only for the Bitcoin community, but for mankind. That's how I look at Bitcoin. It's really, something positive for mankind. And since we all got to go now, especially you guys, then I just want to round it out by saying, people out there, please be careful not to place more value in fiat currency, because it has a built-in policy to wipe out your savings. So be careful with fiat currency. Don't put too much value in it. And John, thank you so much, guys. And
a good time.
Okay. Let me do just the finals. So on Wednesday, 11 Pacific time, we have Tahinis. And on Friday, 11 a.m. PST, we have Brady, Citizen Bitcoin. And Tuesday, the 8th of December, next week, we have Jeff Booth. John, thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Poppy, love it. Thank you so much to all of you out there.
Man.
See you on the next one.
Well, have a good time.
See you guys. Thanks a lot.